Okay, my YouTube people, this collection of parts and box you see is for an S&S Super-E, and I'm going to show you how to put it back together. You can clearly see everything is nice and clean. As you know, I stress on all my videos, clean, clean, clean. I'm not sure where I got this rebuild kit, but I'm guessing I got it down at John's Cycle in Chester. And I have new parts, and then I have some leftover parts. I have a gasket that's in good shape, so I'm going to reuse it. I normally don't do that, but in this case, I am, so I don't have to buy a whole kit. When you buy an S&S rebuild kit, it should have this 90-degree elbow in it, as opposed to this straight one that's very hard to get your fuel line on, and then it has to make a sharp 90 bend. This one's much bigger, it makes the 90, and it swivels. And this part is the seat where the needle goes into. I highly recommend anytime you're doing this, that you get some kind of new needle, because it needs it whether you know it or not. Here's all my old parts. They're all cleaned up. Some of this I will reuse, some of it I won't. So I always keep all my old parts. That way I have parts just in case somebody breaks down or something like that. I have extra stuff for them if they need it. I'm going to start to put this together. As always, I'm going to put some O-ring lubricant on all my O-rings. This keeps them soft and swells them just a little bit. Make sure they're sealing good. I just take and just wipe it on there. You don't need a lot. This is the bowl drain going on first. Then I'm going to put the 90-degree fuel elbow on. Before I put it on, I am going to take this O-ring off and put the O-ring lube on it. Back on we go. Make sure to wipe off the O-ring grease where it doesn't belong. Okay. Next I have the new needle. I slip that over the tab. Put the pivot through and drop this in like that, and then you put this screw in, and I'm going to put just a drop of blue Loctite on this screw, not too much. And then where it seats should be just sloped down a little bit. There's a measurement for it, and I have that measurement in another video, but this carb came off a running bike, so I'm not going to get carried away with it. It'll be fine. Now I'm going to put the accelerator pump together. Once you get to this point, you have this little spring. You have to drop that spring into here. Once you drop that spring into here, you put both your O-rings in. And then you drop the two ball bearings in. One there, one on top of the spring. I have a new diaphragm that I'm going to use. It's S&S part number 11-2282. You put this on. If you look, both sides of this metal thing kind of look the same, but there's a ridge on this right here, and the ridge faces up because that ridge sits in this groove here. Now you put the spring on, and then you set this down over the whole thing. Like that. You have to make sure that ridge ends up where it belongs, up in that groove, and it is. And then you put your screws in. You're going to get one short one here, and then one short one here. And the one here that's long is this one, and that goes up into the carburetor body. I'm going to snug them up, but not really tighten them down hard until I get that last one in. Now to check, make sure you got it right, you can put this rod down in here. You can push down on the rod and you'll feel the spring pushing it back. The last thing you want to do before you put the float bowl on is you want to put the O-ring on the accelerator pump nozzle. Now you want to make sure that you're not confused. This bigger O-ring is what you use in the bottom of the accelerator pump. And then this smaller one is the one that goes on here. I give it a coat of the O-ring grease and then just slip it on there. You can see that's real tight on there. Now we'll come over to the main carb body. This has a slight groove on it, probably because somebody over tightened it. So I am going to use the new one out of the rebuild kit. First thing I'm going to do is put my emulsions tube in. This had a 64 main jet. It was on an Ironhead Sportster, but since I'm going on to a 1340 Evo motor, I'm going to go with a 72 main jet, and then I'll ride it eventually and see how it is there. Now I'm going to put my pilot jet in. This originally had a 28. I'm going to step up to a 29.5. These will be a good starting point, and I'll ride it and see how it is from there. Of course, I'll save these old jets. Next, I'll put on the throttle cable plate here. I just put a little bit of blue Loctite on that screw. Put that in. Next, I'm going to put the choke mechanism in. It goes this piece down, gets the spring, gets the nut. Let's give it a little snug up. And a little check. Next thing you do is put your spring on your idle mixture screw. That goes in here. I want to take this all the way down. You just want to barely seat it so you don't damage it. So as you saw, I was having trouble getting the idle mixture screw into the body. I took the old one and I put it in. It went right in, no problem. But the new one wouldn't. And the old one, you can see where the tip, somebody's tightened it down a hair too much and damaged it. So I had to run a 1032 tap over it to clean up the threads. It just wasn't quite right. And now it goes in no problem. So now you want to put the spring on it. You want to take it down till it's lightly seated. And then you want to take it back 1.5 turns. And that's a good starting point to tune them. So there I did it with my hands. That's half, 1.5. Before I put the rubber boot over the accelerator pump rod, I'm going to put a little bit of the O-ring grease into it to help lube the rod, plus keep the rubber nice and soft. I'll just stick it right up in there like that. And just kind of mash it around. Now I'll just take and put that right on. I'll drop the rod in here. Now that I got the rod in there, now you put your gasket on and you just slip the float bowl right on. Like that. You take the 3 short screws, 1, 2, 3, and then the 1 long one for the accelerator pump. And now you tighten those 4 plus these 2 up. Now you tighten the 4 plus 2 screws. Next thing you want to do is put a little O-ring lube on this and put this O-ring here, but I'm going to wait to do that until I'm ready to bolt the carb on. Your phenolic spacer goes on up against that O-ring, and this gets another O-ring. Just to keep things organized, I'll put the spacer there, and I'd like to use these stainless Allen head cap screws, and that's how you assemble an S&S Super-E Carburetor. All you got to do now is bolt it on and jet it for your motorcycle. Keep everything organized. I'm going to put the air filter backing plate onto the carb. I'm going to lightly thread these screws in, and although they have lock washers, I put a good bit of blue Loctite on these because I don't want one coming loose getting sucked into the engine. Want to make sure that when you assemble this, get the arm into the choke rod. You can see this air filter is damaged and ruined. I'm going to set it in here just for assembly purposes. I won't reuse that. Then I'll put the air breather on, and I'll put the 3 screws in just to keep everything together. And I'll put a little bit of blue Loctite on these. And that's how you assemble an S&S Super-E Carb. I appreciate you watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything, and it helps my channel a good bit. And if you have any questions or comments, please drop them below. I try to get back to everybody I can, and I appreciate you watching. Thank you.